September 19th, 1944. 6 miles from the German city of Aachen, a staff sergeant stood exposed in the commander's hatch of a 33-ton Sherman tank, scanning the rooftops of a small German village in the gray light before dawn. His name was Lafayette Greenpool, and he had been told, directly ordered, not to be here. "Stay on the flank," they said. "No heroics. One more day and you're going home." But here's the thing about Lafayette Pool. He had spent 3 months proving that in armored warfare, there is no such thing as a safe position. There is only the man who shoots first and the man who doesn't shoot again. In 83 days of combat, Pool and his 4-man crew had destroyed more enemy vehicles than any tank crew in American military history. 258, 12 confirmed tank kills, over 1,000 German soldiers. They had done it in the same Sherman, 3 times over, because the first 2 kept getting blown up. And this morning, with his ticket home sitting in a headquarters folder somewhere, Lafayette Pool was about to fight his final battle. If you grew up in South Texas in the 1920s, you learned early that the land didn't give you anything for free. Lafayette Pool was born on July 23, 1919, in a tiny farming community near the coast of Texas, the kind of place where electricity was a luxury, water came from a hand-pumped well, and entertainment meant church on Sunday if you were lucky. He came into the world 5 minutes after his twin brother and spent his childhood doing what farm kids did, working cattle, repairing equipment with whatever scraps were available, and learning that effort was the only currency that mattered. Pool was an exceptional student and a ferocious athlete. He graduated high school and went on to a Catholic prep school where he finished as valedictorian in 1938. He enrolled in engineering at what is now Texas A&M Kingsville. But the thing that really shaped Lafayette Pool, the thing that turned a smart farm boy into something different, was boxing. Pool competed at 165 pounds. He was long and lean, with fast hands and a style that was almost reckless in its aggression. He compiled an amateur record of 41 wins and no defeats. He won a sectional Golden Gloves championship. The national organization invited him to compete for the national title. He turned it down. He had other plans. But boxing had given him something that no classroom could, an instinct for the moment of attack, the understanding that hesitation is its own kind of defeat, that the fighter who commits first, fully, is the one who walks away. He would carry that instinct into a very different kind of fight. On June 14, 1941, exactly 6 months before Pearl Harbor would make the decision for millions of other young men, Lafayette Pool walked into the recruitment office at Fort Sam Houston in San Antonio and signed his name. He was 21 years old, 6 feet 2 inches tall, and understood exactly what he was volunteering for. The world was already at war. Germany had swallowed most of Europe. Britain was holding on by its teeth. Anyone paying attention knew the United States would eventually be pulled in. Pool just decided to choose his moment, rather than wait for one to be chosen for him. He was assigned to the newly forming 3rd Armored Division at Camp Polk, Louisiana, a unit that would eventually earn the nickname Spearhead for its role as the cutting edge of America's advance across France and into Germany. Always first, always deepest in enemy territory, Pool fit right in. Training lasted nearly 3 years. Pool and his fellow tankers drilled in Louisiana swamps, California deserts, and Pennsylvania hills. They learned how to read terrain like a map, how to acquire a target in under 3 seconds, how to coordinate 5 men inside a steel box so that their actions became instinct rather than thought. Pool refused a commission. When officers offered him the chance to become a lieutenant, to command from company headquarters, to direct multiple tanks over a radio, he turned it down. He wanted to fight, not manage. That decision defined everything. Staff sergeants didn't lead platoon attacks, but Pool's commanders recognized something in him that rank couldn't quite contain. Again and again, they would give Pool missions that should have gone to lieutenants or captains, and again, Pool would climb into his tank and get it done. During this period, he also married Evelyn Wright on a brief leave in December 1942. She would wait for him. She would raise 8 children. And she would be there when he came home, though not in the condition either of them imagined. In late 1943, the 3rd Armored Division crossed the Atlantic and began staging in England, waiting for the invasion that everyone knew was coming. While waiting in England, Poole got into a boxing ring one more time. Joe Louis, the heavyweight champion of the world, arguably the greatest prize fighter who ever lived, was touring military bases to boost troop morale. Exhibition matches, light sparring, a chance for servicemen to say they've gone around with the brown bomber. Poole volunteered. Of course he did. The bout was scheduled for the 4th of July, 1944, in Liverpool. And Poole, being Poole, didn't treat it like an exhibition. He came out aggressive. He landed shots that genuinely surprised Louis. Louis put an arm around him and said something quiet in his ear. Then, he spent the rest of the bout demonstrating exactly what separated a Golden Gloves champion from a professional heavyweight who had knocked out 46 opponents. Poole absorbed the lesson. Years later, he said Louis had turned him every which way but loose. But here's what Poole took away from that experience. It wasn't about strength. It wasn't even about skill alone. It was about timing, positioning, and finding the one angle where your punch could actually land. Going toe-to-toe with a superior opponent, on his terms, was a losing strategy. You had to find your shot. That principle would destroy a lot of German tanks. When Poole selected his crew, he wasn't looking for the best individual soldiers. He was looking for the right combination of people. The driver was Wilbert Richards, a compact, wiry man, barely 5'4", who could maneuver 33 tons of steel through village streets most people wouldn't try on foot. The crew called him Baby because of his boyish face. Poole said Baby could parallel park a Sherman in New York rush hour traffic. An exaggeration, probably. Richards drove with his hatch open whenever possible. He had once been trapped inside a tank during training when a hatch jammed. He never forgot it. An open hatch meant slower reaction time to incoming fire, but it also meant Richards could see, and it meant he had a way out if things went badly. In the calculus of tank combat, both mattered. The bow gunner was Bertrand Close, 17 years old, from Portland, Oregon, who wore wire-rimmed glasses and looked like someone's younger brother. The crew called him Schoolboy. With a .30 caliber machine gun, he was vicious. The gunner, the most critical position in the tank, was Corporal Willis Euler, 29 years old. Calm where Poole was intense. Methodical where Poole was instinctive. His face was permanently marked by the imprint of his tanker goggles because he kept his eye pressed to the sight at every waking moment, ready to fire. Poole would give a command. Euler's hands were already moving. The loader was Delbert Boggs. The crew had a colorful story about how Boggs had ended up in the Army, involving a courthouse and a judge with limited patience. Whether every detail was true didn't matter. What mattered was that Boggs was fast, he was strong, and he never dropped around. Together, they called themselves the Pups. They called Poole War Daddy. The 3rd Armored Division came ashore at Omaha Beach on June 24, 1944, 18 days after D-Day, in steady rain that turned the beach into a muddy chaos of men and machines. Poole's first Sherman rolled up that beach under its own power. He had the words, "In the Mood," painted on the hull in white block letters, taken from the Glenn Miller song that had been playing on radios across America since 1940. Upbeat, aggressive, relentless. It would last 5 days. On June 29th, Poole and his crew entered combat in the hedgerow country of Normandy, attacking a German defensive position near the village of Villiers-Fossat. The hedgerows of Normandy were unlike anything American tankers had trained for. Thick earthen walls crowned with dense vegetation, centuries old, lining every field and road, turning the landscape into a maze of natural fortifications. Every hedgerow concealed a potential ambush. Every gap was a kill zone. Poole's crew destroyed 3 German vehicles and more than 70 enemy soldiers on the first day alone. Then, entering what was supposed to be a cleared village, a German soldier stepped from a doorway with a shoulder-fired anti-tank weapon and fired from less than 50 yards. The round punched through the hull. All 5 crew members got out. Nobody was hurt. In the Mood, the first one, was gone. Poole got a replacement tank within days. He had "In the Mood" painted on it immediately. This one came with a significant upgrade, a 76mm main gun, replacing the 75mm on his first tank. Poole was the first commander in his regiment to receive this variant. The longer gun changed the tank's balance, changed the internal ammunition storage, changed the feel of the vehicle. Poole's crew spent 2 days making it their own. The tactical philosophy Poole had developed and would refine over the next 3 months was almost brutally simple. Never fight a German tank at long range. German guns were superior at distance. The Panther's 75mm weapon could destroy a Sherman from 2,000 yards. At that range, American guns were largely ineffective against German frontal armor. So Poole closed the distance, aggressively. He maneuvered into positions where his gun could actually work: flank shots, rear shots, point-blank engagements where the laws of physics applied equally to both vehicles. He got there before the German crew knew he was coming, and then he fired first. Strike first, strike hard. Never give them time to bring their weapons to bear. It was the same principle as boxing. Don't fight your opponent's fight. Find your shot, commit completely. That philosophy would account for 12 German tanks and 246 other enemy vehicles over the next 11 weeks. On July 26, 1944, the United States Army Air Forces dropped nearly 4,000 tons of bombs on a 7-mile stretch of German front lines south of Saint-Lô. Over 1,800 aircraft participated. The bombardment lasted hours. When it ended, the German defensive line had ceased to exist as a coherent structure. The 3rd Armored Division pushed through 3 days later, and everything changed. For weeks, they had been measuring progress in hundreds of yards per day. Now, they were covering 20 and 30 miles. German units that had been holding prepared defensive positions suddenly found American armor appearing behind them, cutting their retreat routes, surrounding their supply columns. Poole was in front of all of it. During the pursuit across France and into Belgium, Poole's crew destroyed vehicle after vehicle: half-tracks, trucks, armored cars, artillery pieces, and tanks. In one engagement near Liège, Belgium, acting as an impromptu platoon leader because no officers were available, Poole spotted a column of a dozen German vehicles attempting to escape across open fields, destroyed 6 of them in rapid succession, then received a radio report of a German Panther tank attacking the American column ahead. He wheeled around, raced back at top speed, came in on the Panther's flank while its commander was focused forward, and destroyed it with a single shot to the side armor. 258. The number climbed. German tank crews had a name for the Sherman. They called it a Zippo, because it lit up on the first shot. That reputation was partly deserved. Early model Shermans had ammunition storage that could catastrophically ignite when penetrated. German Panther tanks outgunned and out-armored them in nearly every technical specification. On paper, a Panther should beat a Sherman every time. Poole's record says otherwise. On one night operation in the Normandy hedgerows, Poole's tank came around the corner of a field and found itself facing a Panther at 30 yards. Pitch dark. Neither crew expected the other. The German tank fired twice. Both rounds missed. Darkness, surprise, and rushed aim working against the more powerful gun. Euler's reply was one shot. He put an armor-piercing round through the turret ring at the junction where the turret met the hull, a weak point. The Panther burned. On another occasion, advancing with minimal support during a 3-day action in late August, Poole's crew engaged and destroyed 4 German tanks in separate encounters over 72 hours. including 2 Panthers destroyed in a single engagement, both shooting at Poole simultaneously while he was effectively alone. For his actions during those 3 days, Poole was awarded the Distinguished Service Cross, America's second highest decoration for valor in combat. The citation described a tank commander who had advanced alone or with limited support, drawing enemy fire to identify gun positions, destroying anti-tank emplacements and armored vehicles at point-blank range, enabling his task force to advance with minimal casualties. Many of the men who were there believed it should have been the Medal of Honor. Poole's second In the Mood wasn't destroyed by German forces. In August 1944, advancing through a French village during the pursuit across France, Poole looked up and saw American P-38 Lightning fighter bombers diving toward his position. The twin-engine aircraft were distinctive, unmistakable to anyone on the ground. But from altitude, a tank is a tank. The pilots saw armor moving through a village and assumed German. Poole grabbed the radio, calling frantically to identify his position. The aircraft were already committed to their attack. Rockets streaked down from the diving P-38s. One struck the turret. Another hit the engine compartment. All 5 crew members got out. Several were slightly injured, but all survived. The second In the Mood was gone. Poole would later describe the incident with the controlled bitterness of a man who had survived German fire for months, only to be nearly killed by his own Air Force. The P-38 pilots, upon learning what they had done, were reportedly devastated. It didn't bring the tank back. Within days, Poole and his crew had their 3rd Sherman. White block letters went on the hull immediately. In the Mood, number 3. By mid-September 1944, Poole's commanders made a decision. Enough. Poole and his crew had fought in 21 major engagements. They had lost 3 tanks and kept fighting. They had destroyed 258 enemy vehicles. Division headquarters wanted them home. For a war bonds tour, yes, but also because watching the most effective tank commander in American history get killed on a routine patrol was not something anyone wanted to explain. The orders were clear. September 19th, one final support mission outside the German town of Musterbusch, 6 miles from Aachen. Stay on the flank, no spearheading. 1 more day. There was one change in the crew. Willis Euler, Poole's gunner, the man whose eye had been pressed to that site for 3 months of combat, had been temporarily transferred back to the United States weeks earlier as part of a rotation system for combat veterans. In his place was Private First Class Paul Kenneth King, 20 years old, from Anderson County, Tennessee. Experienced, capable, a different set of hands on the gun. The attack began at first light. German resistance was fierce. They were defending German soil now, not occupied France, and every position was contested. Poole's tank moved on the flank as ordered, providing supporting fire, doing everything right. Then, a German Panther, positioned in a prepared firing lane with an excellent field of view, opened fire on the American armor. The commander selected Poole's tank as a priority target. 2 rounds, fired in rapid succession, both precisely aimed. The first penetrated the turret. Paul Kenneth King died instantly. The second round struck the hull. Poole was still in the commander's position. Shrapnel tore into his right leg. The concussion from the internal detonation nearly rendered him unconscious. But some instinct, 3 months of survival instinct, got him moving. He gave the order to bail out. The tank tipped forward into a shell crater as the crew escaped. Poole was partially thrown clear, but trapped against the hatch rim, his leg unable to support him. His crew turned back, running toward a burning tank that could explode at any second, and pulled him free. The 3rd In the Mood burned. War Daddy's war was over. Poole was evacuated through the medical chain. The damage to his right leg was too severe to repair. Surgeons amputated 8 inches above the knee. He was 25 years old. He spent months recovering. He learned to walk with a prosthetic. He survived, which, given the previous 83 days, remained something close to a miracle. Paul Kenneth King, the young gunner from Tennessee who had been filling in for Euler on what was supposed to be the safe mission before Poole went home, was buried far from Anderson County at the age of 20. The distinction between their fates, Poole wounded and sent home, King killed, came down to an administrative transfer order, a rotation policy, a routine personnel decision made by someone with no way of knowing the consequences. In war, there is no such thing as a safe position. Poole re-enlisted in July 1948. He could have taken his medical discharge and gone back to Texas, gone back to farming or engineering or anything else. But the Army had become his life. He stayed, training the next generation of tankers, passing on what 3 months of the worst armored combat in history had taught him. He retired on September 19, 1960, exactly 16 years to the day after Musterbusch, with the rank of Chief Warrant Officer. He settled near Fort Hood, Texas. He and Evelyn raised 8 children. The marriage that had started on a December leave in 1942 lasted until his death. In 1993, Fort Knox, the home of Army Armor, dedicated its tank driver training simulator facility in Poole's honor. Every tanker trained there learns his story. The tactics he proved in 3 months of combat remain foundational to American armored doctrine. In 2014, the film Fury introduced Poole's story to a new generation. The character War Daddy, played by Brad Pitt, was explicitly modeled on Lafayette Poole's combat style, philosophy, and leadership. Poole died on May 30, 1991, in Keene, Texas. He was 71 years old. He was twice nominated for the Medal of Honor. Both nominations failed. The second rejected on the grounds that tanks were crew-served weapons, and therefore individual heroism in armored combat didn't qualify for the nation's highest decoration. Many of the men who fought beside him disagreed. Let's put Poole's combat record in context, because the numbers alone don't capture how improbable this was. The average Sherman tank in the European theater survived approximately 11 days of combat before being knocked out or destroyed. Poole's crew survived 83 days across 3 different tanks, continuing to fight after each loss. The average American tank crew destroyed somewhere between 1 and 3 enemy vehicles during their entire combat service. Poole's crew destroyed 258. The Sherman tank was, by most technical measures, inferior to its German opponents. It was outgunned. It was under-armored. German tank crews had genuine reason to be confident that they held the advantage in any fair engagement. But Poole didn't fight fair. He fought smart. He closed distances that made German long-range advantages irrelevant. He maneuvered for the shot that his gun could actually make. He trained his crew until target acquisition took 3 seconds instead of 5. And in tank combat, 2 seconds is the difference between the kill and being killed. He proved something that military establishments perpetually resist admitting. The crew matters more than the machine. Superior tactics, superior training, superior leadership. 258. Lafayette Greenpool. Farm boy. Boxer. Engineer. Tank commander. A man who turned down a national boxing championship because he had other plans. A man who turned down a military commission because he wanted to fight from the front rather than manage from the rear. A man who climbed back into a tank after losing one, and then climbed back in again after losing a second. The Army gave him a hall at Fort Knox. Hollywood gave him Brad Pitt. His country gave him the Distinguished Service Cross, the Silver Star, the Legion of Merit, and a Purple Heart. France gave him the Legion of Honor. What he gave in return was this: proof that an ordinary person, properly prepared and led, can accomplish something genuinely extraordinary. The weapons change. The tactics evolve. The lessons stay. If you're watching this, subscribe, Because next week, we're covering another story from the Second World War that most people have never heard. And if you liked this one, share it. These men earned at least that much. War Daddy, out.